My mother lifted her glass and smiled in that polished way that hid a blade. "Tell me, Caroline," she said, her voice sweet as poison, "do they still let you inside, or do you just wander around, pretending you matter?" Laughter rippled across the table like a slow wave. My sister raised her glass to family who stay useful. I sat perfectly still, staring at the meal I hadn't touched. I'd come to prove I could take a joke, to show them I could be small and still survive. But in that moment, I knew the truth. They didn't invite me to reconnect. They invited me to disappear, and part of me almost did. Almost. I was once the promise of this family, the bright daughter who made them proud in every photo, Yale scholar, fast-track fellowship, a life built to impress strangers. Then I left it all behind, not in rage, in quiet, necessary surrender. They called it failure, a breakdown, proof I was never strong enough to belong. But the truth was simpler. I had seen something I could never unsee, a girl locked in a cell crying for her mother, and I realized I couldn't live in their world anymore. So I vanished, became someone they stopped mentioning, until tonight when they decided to remind me I would never be one of them again. My sister leaned closer, her voice low. "Don't act like you're better than us, Caroline." Her smile never touched her eyes. I looked at my father. He studied his glass as if I wasn't there. My mother just kept that polite grin, the one she wore when she wanted to humiliate me slowly. Every word felt rehearsed, every laugh rehearsed. They wanted me small, ashamed, invisible. I thought of the nights I worked in shelters, of the women who taught me survival wasn't always loud, that sometimes it was just standing up even when your knees shook. But here in this room, every memory of my fight felt fragile, like they could crush it with one more toast to my failure. I pushed back my chair. I couldn't give them the ending they wanted, the sight of me breaking. Then a voice rose behind me. Madam Secretary Anna called, her tone calm, certain. Every head turned. My sister's smile faltered. My mother's glass froze midair. "We need to review tomorrow's briefing." She held out a folder, the seal of the vice president stamped across the front. In that instant, the room fell silent. They saw me not as a failure, but as someone they could no longer dismiss. I took the folder slowly, met my mother's stare without flinching, and for the first time in years I felt whole. I walked to the door without a word. No anger, no apology, just the soft click of my heels and the knowledge they could never erase me again. Outside, the air was cold and clean. I breathed it in like something holy. I wasn't leaving as their disappointment. I was leaving as the woman I chose to become. If this story feels like yours, if you've ever been told you don't belong, know this: survival is not weakness. It's proof you are still here. Tell me in the comments, are you listening? That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my small apartment, the city lights flickering through thin curtains. I opened the old notebook I'd hidden for years. Inside, my handwriting trembled across the pages. Case notes. Stories of people no one cared to remember. A girl named Alma, 11 years old, locked away because she wouldn't stop crying for her mother. I remembered watching a man shove her bag into a wall, her shoulders folding like a paper bird. That was the moment something inside me broke, not because I was weak, but because I finally saw what strength was meant to protect. The next morning, I withdrew from Yale. No ceremony, no goodbye. I packed my life into a single suitcase, a canvas bag my father once gave me, stitched with the words, "We rise with roots." My mother called it betrayal. My sister called it weakness. But for me, it was the first honest choice I had ever made. I boarded a bus to Washington, heart pounding, not knowing if I would survive without their approval. But I knew I couldn't stay in a life built on silence. In Washington, no one cared about my last name. No one asked about Yale. I became an inventory clerk in a drafty office that smelled like old coffee. I wrote grant proposals at night, policy briefs at dawn. For the first time, I felt free. Invisible, yes, but free. Some nights, I wondered if my family would ever recognize the woman I was becoming. And then I realized it didn't matter if they did. I wasn't building this life for them. Years passed quietly. I worked in shadows, crafting programs for people no one noticed. Housing for veterans, food security grants, support lines that stayed open when everything else shut down. I signed my reports with a different name, D.H. Reeves, my grandmother's name, simple and honest. When the blueprint I wrote was adopted, no one knew it was mine, and I didn't care. It wasn't about recognition. It was about proving that healing was possible even if no one clapped for it. One morning, a plain envelope waited on my desk. No return address. Inside was a child's drawing, two stick figures holding hands beneath a crooked sun. Block letters read, "You helped my mom. Thank you for not giving up." I didn't know who sent it. I didn't need to. I tucked it into my wallet next to my old Yale ID. One reminded me who I used to be. The other reminded me why I never went back. Weeks later, my director handed me a thick folder. His voice was careful. "The vice president's office wants to meet you," he said. "They traced the blueprint back to you." I stared at the name on the cover. Caroline Hale. My real name exposed after years of hiding. My heart hammered in my chest. I thought about my mother's voice telling me I was nothing without their approval. But here it was proof that I could matter on my own terms. I closed the folder, hands steady for once. I was ready. That night, I opened my laptop. The screen glowed in the dark, waiting for my words. I started to write my mother, not to boast, just to tell her I'd survived. But as I typed, my chest went cold. I erased every line. Instead, I wrote one sentence: "I will attend the 60th anniversary gala. Make room." I didn't say why. I didn't say who I'd become. I knew the silence would say enough. I landed in Colorado 2 days before the gala. Snow fell in slow, heavy sheets. The old estate looked unchanged, grand, indifferent, like it had never noticed I was gone. Inside, chandeliers glowed over polished floors. Every corner whispered about who I used to be. I stood alone in the entryway, wearing a plain navy dress and a watch that kept perfect time. I wasn't here to impress them. I was here to stand my ground, and this time I wouldn't walk away feeling small. Evelyn spotted me first. Her eyes flicked over my dress, searching for weakness. She walked up slowly, smile tight as wire. "Try not to embarrass yourself," she murmured, voice soft enough to stay off record. I met her stare without blinking. "No need," I said. "I'm just here to listen." She looked startled for a breath. Then she stepped back, mask sliding into place again. I knew that look. It was fear wrapped in disdain. My mother arrived late, just as the cameras were turning. She swept into the ballroom, draped in gray silk and practiced grace. She kissed my cheek, her smile wide for the crowd. "We're so proud of Caroline," she announced, her voice syrupy sweet. Then she leaned close, her whisper colder than the snow outside. "Keep her close, Evelyn," she said, "before she burns this all down." I heard every word, and for once it didn't hurt. Dinner began with a speech about legacy. The host listed names, doctors, donors, every relative with a title. Not mine. Evelyn took the stage, her eyes grazing me like I was something she'd outgrown. "Our family has always served," she said smoothly. "My sister too, in whatever corner she hides these days." Laughter flickered across the room. Polite, cruel. I didn't move. I'd learned how to stay still when the world tried to erase me. Dessert plates were cleared, silverware clinking like distant bells. I sat alone at the edge of their celebration, hands unfolded in my lap. No one spoke to me. No one asked why I'd come. Maybe they thought I'd finally accepted my place, the silent failure at the end of the table. But as the room buzzed with their easy triumph, I felt something steady rising in my chest. It wasn't anger. It was readiness. The doors swung open, breaking the hush. Anna stepped inside her suit, dark and precise. She walked straight to me, her voice clear enough for every ear to catch. "Madam Secretary," she said, the title ringing like a bell, "your car is waiting. The Vice President has arrived." Gasps rippled across the tables. Evelyn's face drained of color. I stood slowly, feeling the weight of every eye. At last they saw me as I was, not small, not broken. I smoothed my dress hands steady. For a moment no one spoke, no one dared. I looked at my mother, her mouth parted in a question she couldn't form. "Thank you for the meal," I said quietly. Then I turned my heels, tapping like a quiet victory. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Some endings don't require applause. Outside, the cold hit my face like a promise. I breathed in deep, filling my lungs with air that wasn't theirs to control. Anna waited by the car, her eyes steady on mine. "Ready?" she asked, no judgment in her voice. I nodded. For the first time, leaving didn't feel like escape. It felt like claiming something I'd earned, a life that belonged to me alone. That night, sleep never came. I sat by the window watching snow gather on the glass. My phone buzzed with messages, articles, headlines, questions I didn't care to answer. I opened my notebook instead. The same worn pages where I'd hidden my truth. I read every line, each story a reminder that survival was never simple. It was a choice made over and over in the dark. By morning, the headlines multiplied. Secretary Hale, from breakdown to cabinet, can she be trusted? I didn't flinch. I knew whose hands shaped those questions. Evelyn's style was always the same: soft cruelty, polite disbelief, doubt disguised as concern. I set my phone aside, breathing steady. This wasn't revenge, this was consequence, and I was ready to face it all. 2 days later, Anna slipped me her phone. On the screen, Evelyn sat under studio lights, face solemn, voice soft. "I love my sister," she began, brushing hair from her cheek. "But Caroline has a history of mental instability. Our mother had no choice." The host frowned, pretending sympathy. I watched in silence, my hands cold. They weren't content to question my work. They wanted me erased. That night, Anna brought me an envelope. My father's handwriting stumbled across the front. Inside, a short letter, ink-faded and uneven. "I wasn't strong enough to stop your mother," he wrote. "But I always believed in you. She doesn't hate you. She fears you are right, that you don't need her script." I read it twice, hands trembling. It didn't heal everything, but it named the truth we'd both carried alone. I sat in the quiet, the letter warm in my hands. Anna watched me carefully, waiting for my decision. "You can bury them," she said, her voice low. "You have enough evidence." I looked out the window, city lights blurring in the glass. "I'm not here to destroy," I whispered. "I'm here to be heard." It wasn't revenge that drove me anymore. It was the need to finally stand without fear. A week later, things began to shift. Calls went unanswered. Projects stalled without warning. Rumors spread whispers of stolen funds, foreign deals I'd never made. Anna placed a folder on my desk, her eyes hard. "They're saying you took money from banned organizations," she said. I closed my laptop slowly. My heart didn't race. I knew exactly whose fingerprints marked this sabotage. Hoy ChatGPT. Days later, I'd flagged my account. Emails I'd never written, carefully worded to look real. Promises of secret funding signed with my name. But the trail led nowhere in DC. Every trace pointed home to Colorado. Someone had built a shadow version of me, just credible enough to spark an investigation. I stared at the screen, feeling something cold settle in my chest. They didn't just want my silence, they wanted my existence unraveled. At the hearing, cameras lined the walls like rows of eyes. Senator Whitlock leaned forward, his smile thin. "We have concerns," he drawled, "about your ties to foreign grants." I didn't blink. Behind my eyelids, I saw Evelyn shaking his hand at the gala, whispering behind a raised glass. This wasn't oversight. It was orchestration, and I knew I wouldn't bow. After the hearing, Anna met me in my office. She placed a single document on the desk, a financial transfer signed by my mother, millions rerouted to a shell nonprofit. Proof of everything they tried to bury. I didn't feel triumphant, only tired. This was never just politics, it was family turned against itself, and somehow I was still standing. That night, I returned to my apartment. No lights greeted me, power cut, just another tactic. I sat on the floor, my coat still uncold, seeping through the seams. From my wallet, I pulled the child's drawing, 2 figures beneath the sun. I traced the words with my thumb, "Thank you for not giving up." In the darkness, I made a promise. They would not erase me again. In the morning, my inbox held one message. No greeting, no name. Just a subject line, "You need to see this." I clicked the file, hand steady. A video played Evelyn at a cafe leaning close to Senator Whitlock. The audio crackled. "Take her down. She's not one of us." I didn't flinch. I didn't forward it to the press. Not yet. I simply whispered, "I know." I sat at my desk, the video still open. My hands didn't shake. I picked up a pen and wrote a letter to my mother. "I'm not trying to make you proud anymore. I've given that up. But I still hope there is a part of you that can stop before we both go too far." I signed my name, folded the page, and sealed it without regret. Whatever came next, I was ready. The next day, my father's lawyer called. He said my father wanted to see me. I hadn't heard his voice in years. At the hospice center, he looked smaller than I remembered. When I entered, he smiled weak and tired. "Caroline," he rasped, "I didn't think I'd see you again." He held my hand, his grip trembling. "I believed in you," he whispered, even when I stayed silent. He took a slow breath, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Your mother, she can't stand that you proved her wrong, he said softly. She will ruin you to protect her story. His voice broke. I signed things thinking I was keeping peace. He paused, tears sliding down his cheek. I was wrong. I didn't argue. I didn't comfort him. We both knew the cost of silence, and we both knew it had finally come due. That night, I walked back to my office alone. The city glowed indifferent to our failures. Anna waited by the door, a question in her eyes. If we win, I said quietly, it won't be with knives. She watched me, silent but understanding. I don't want to become them, I whispered. I won't cut with truth. I looked down at my hands, steady and open. I want to heal with it. The next morning, I called my team together. Engineers, analysts, advocates, people who had built hope from nothing. I told them we were going public, not with scandal, but with proof of what we'd done. Housing, food, dignity. If they fall, I said it won't be because we pushed. It will be because they forgot the spotlight burns. Heads nodded. No fear left, only purpose. On the day of the hearing, reporters crowded the steps. Microphones aimed like weapons, questions thrown like stones. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I walked through them, breathing slow. Inside, the chamber felt colder than I'd imagined. Senators whispered papers, rustling and practiced judgment. I took my seat, hands folded in my lap. I wasn't here to defend a reputation. I was here to defend the truth. A senator stood, voice smooth as glass. Is it true, he asked, that you were once committed for psychiatric evaluation? His gaze was steady, waiting for me to crumble. For a moment, I heard it all again, the restraints, the quiet click of a door locking. My pulse hammered. Then Anna pressed a folder into my hand. Inside were letters, testimonies from those we'd helped. Their words anchored me back to myself. I stood, voice low, but clear. Yes, I said I was hospitalized. I know what it means to be seen as broken, but that is why I fight for those this system forgets. I held up the last page, proof of millions stolen under my mother's watch. I'm not here to clear my name, I said softly. I'm here to remind you who this work is for. The room fell silent. No one looked away. When I stepped outside, the sun had shifted. Anna handed me her phone, her voice quiet. Your father passed while you were speaking. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of it, the end of something I could never fix. I didn't cry. I didn't stumble. He had heard my voice one last time, and for once, that was enough. I walked into the light, finally unafraid to be seen. If this story stayed with you, even for a moment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment and tell me what part felt true to you. And if you'd like to walk this path together, subscribe to the channel. There are more stories ahead, and I'd be honored to share them with you.